So, what's the deal with live service? It's not live, and it ain't a service.
Halo Infinite is losing players. That's an undeniable fact. It had an impressive player count of nearly 20 million unique users on its launch, the biggest launch of any Halo ever. But have 343 squandered that opportunity? I think so. Will 343 be able to claw back the players they hemorrhaged in these first few months? Maybe, but I think it's going to be incredibly difficult to ever get that many eyes on the game at once, ever again. I think there was a brief window around the time of the multiplayer surprise launch that 343 had a prime opportunity to capitalize on their attention, when they had all eyes on them. Chances are, even if you're not a Halo fan, you were hearing about this game. It topped the Xbox charts and hit a peak concurrent player count on Steam of nearly 300,000. But in the nearly 3 months since its launch, it's fallen out of the Xbox top 5 most played for the first time. Halo Infinite is like that guy at the party who told one funny joke and then keeps repeating it. It was cool for a moment, but people are sick of it. I usually don't do this at the start of the video, usually leaving this for a very brief sentence at the end, but I ask that you please subscribe to my channel and like the video. It really does help me. At this point, asking people to subscribe is almost essential for growth, so please consider it if you enjoy this or any of my videos. Thank you, back to the video. Now, there's a few things to note. For one, 14,000 players isn't bad. Well, in the same way a Prius isn't bad. It will get you there, but it's not exactly very attractive. For Halo, you can still find matches, but it takes longer and some playlists are kind of empty. It's not competing very well with the Titans. People still talk about it and play it, but yeah, it's not looking great. I see people post Twitch numbers to cope. Look, a bunch of people looked at a stream at once. I think it's just as stupid to use Twitch numbers to say a game's alive as it is to say that it's dead. I cannot stress enough how little I care for the fleeting interest of the TikToking, Tide Pod eating, dopamine starved, low attention span having Zoomerinos who watch Twitch. It seems to be doing a lot better on Xbox than on PC. This checks out. It is a game with a history on Xbox, but it is still not hot. We're losing to Call of Duty on our own home turf. And with all this in mind, I just want to say, I called it. I said that we have good reason to be concerned about Halo Infinite. I said before launch that we needed a roadmap ASAP. We still haven't got one. I even suggested that they should have delayed the game a whole year, and I stand by that. Here's the thing, we knew all of these issues were coming. 343 told us everything we needed to know. We had the experience from Halo 5 of what happens when a game launches incomplete, but for some reason, people defended it. People pushed back against the critics who pointed out that 343 was making the exact same mistakes as Halo 5, to some degree even worse. It's all so tiresome. If 343 announces a new game, people would go back into damage control mode and do the same defending of their mistakes, ignoring and minimizing the red flags. But luckily 343 isn't doing that. They're building on Infinite. But will it be enough? Will they claw people back? Are they building on a solid foundation or an Indian burial ground? So why did Halo Infinite slide down like it did? And I can assure you, the slide that Halo Infinite's taking is not a comfortable one. It's like one of those huge metal slides that are out on a really hot day, and we as Halo fans have proverbial burned rumps. There is one thing we have to consider for Halo Infinite's loss of players, one that's been nagging at me, and one that I don't think people are going to want to hear. Is Halo outdated? Outmoded? Is its gameplay just not fit for the modern age? I did notice in that initial wave of players, many came from other games, modern games. To show you what I'm talking about, I'll just list a bunch of buzzwords. I won't even form a full sentence. Battle Royale, Sprint, loadouts, aim down sight, low time to kill, battle royale, grinding, bounties, progression, battle royale, hero shooters, battle royale. Halo doesn't play like most modern shooters play, and thank God for that, because most modern shooters kinda suck. But it doesn't really matter if I think they suck. Is Halo alienating for the modern gamer? Well, gameplay wise, no. There has been a noticeable trend of shooters moving towards the mean in terms of gameplay, with features like sprint becoming almost standard, but I don't think that deviating from that is quite enough to tank a game. There are games that are far more successful than Infinite with far more quote-unquote outdated gameplay. It's funny seeing CSGO top 1 million players daily with slow gameplay that just wouldn't last in the modern day. Now that's not to say game design can't hold a game back from success. For example, I think Quake's design renders it impenetrable to new players, hence why it hasn't attracted any new players in 20 years. I think Titanfall also failed due to its design. It was really fun and cool to fly around the map and max speed, like you're a Genshin Impact player escaping the FBI. But Titanfall wanted to be Call of Duty. The mobility didn't carry over into combat. It had features like aim down sight, which are effectively anti-mobility features. How can you make a mobility themed game that asks you to stop dead in your tracks to be accurate with your weapon? But that's a whole other rant. I think Halo Infinite's gameplay was well received. It received widespread praise. I saw near unanimous positivity for it. There were obviously the critics, the haters, and the plain old filtered, but it's telling just how few and far between they are. It's also important to make the point that, given the issues the game has, and the lack of content, launching without features that became standard for the series 15 years ago, and the cheating problem, it's really hard to say that Halo's been given a fair chance to survive in the current landscape. I do, however, think one aspect of Halo's design is very limited, but it has nothing to do with the gameplay. I think Halo is still relevant in terms of satisfying gameplay that provides intrinsic motivation. But 343 apparently missed the past 10 years in the development of extrinsic motivation, progression systems. Ever since Call of Duty 4 innovated MMO elements in shooters, it's been clear what the next development would be. Money has been pumped into systems that get little kids' neurons firing on all cylinders, that produce the optimal dopamine release, the ideal cycle of dependence. Many games value this more than actual game design. Bungie knew this was going on, hence why they went to work on Destiny. You need the right drip feed of meaningful rewards, bright colors, and animations to get people hooked. Halo Infinite is very weak at doing this. In fact, I feel this is the reason that the primary complaint for most people when the game first came out was not the desync, the lack of content, or the balancing. The primary complaint was the store and the battle pass, the progression. Yes, it's true, the store does suck, and I'm not saying the store doesn't matter to the quality or health of the game, but the store isn't why I play. I play for the intrinsic motivation, the enjoyment derived from playing the game itself. However, the reason I play doesn't matter. My feelings on it don't matter. The progression is a critical aspect to the success of a game, and Halo Infinite failed at getting people invested. The store and progression is the reason that Infinite failed to attract the broader gaming marketplace. But why are the fans leaving? I mentioned the balancing earlier. While I do think Halo Infinite design-wise is good, it does have important flaws that are impossible to ignore. The assault rifle is overpowered for one. It's easy to use. A weapon this easy to use shouldn't be so powerful. It shouldn't have so much range. Much of the fun in Halo is in swapping out your weapons, searching around the map for upgrades to your arsenal. It's a process that requires a lot of thought. What should I use? What weapon do I want? How do I get there? How do I use this weapon? How does this weapon pair with my other weapons? This level of thought is engaging, not to mention it helps flow, keeping people moving around maps in search of power weapons, giving the starting weapon equal power to many of the weapons while being easier to use, invalidates all of this. This is why many fans feel that Halo Infinite has a smaller or reduced weapon sandbox, despite, in actuality, having more weapons with unique roles than previous Halo games like Halo Reach, Halo 4, Halo 3. The one concern is how many of these picked up supposed power weapons have less utility or more niche utility than the default assault rifle that you spawn with. The battle rifle is also far too easy to use. Basically, the projectile is near hit scan with very little spread. Also, there's a recoil, which makes aiming at the chest more likely to score you headshots than, actually aiming at the head. And this isn't even my original commentary. Many people in the community have been echoing this. If you want further detail on this, it's been best articulated in Favin's formidable hour-long review. I want to summarize the issue with the balancing, but if you want the full detail, you'll have to watch this video. I covered these issues in my own review of the game, but they've come into sharp relief as time has gone on. The map design is also lacking. This is, again, something I touched on in my review. Basically, many of the maps follow the popular industry design philosophies too much. 3-lane maps. And 3-lane maps do not work in Halo. At least, not when it's most of the maps. There are no standouts, both in terms of maps and in terms of locations on the map. There are no maps with extreme verticality like Construct or dynamic elements like Zanzibar. The cover is all uniform and the maps are afraid of giving one person an advantage over another. I still find Behemoth fun, but it was clearly terrible for competitive, both with the open environments and the spawns. This is all not to mention how few maps there are. I said before launch that Halo Infinite should have been delayed. I stand by that claim. We need more maps and more diverse maps. I still don't think Halo has had a fair chance to compete with the industry in the modern day. I think it's been mismanaged. 343's management issues are quite obvious and widely reported. Halo Infinite suffered through development hell, I assume as a result of how their previous games were received, among many other factors. This mismanagement caused many issues. I already mentioned the design, but it goes further. Halo Infinite is missing features that have become standard for the Halo series. There is no co-op campaign at launch. This is something that every previous Halo had, and I think it's something that's essential to the sign value of Halo. It's important to remember the precedent in this case. Co-op was an experience that many people enjoyed in previous Halos. 343 even received pushback for launching without split screen in Halo 5. They knew that launching without co-op would be received poorly. Same with Forge, which is exacerbated by the lack of maps at launch. Some people may make the argument that Halo 1 and 2 didn't have Forge, but all you're ultimately doing is arguing for worse games, defending games with less content that's become standard. The precedent for Forge was set over 15 years ago in Halo 3, when said 15-year-old game had all this content available at launch. And it wasn't an expectation then, it was a completely bonus feature. Since then it's been improved in Reach, degraded in 4, and improved again in 5, but after an excruciatingly long 3-month wait. It's become the standard, and 343 received pushback for the delay in 5. Launch is when the game attracts its peak hype and interest. Forge yields the greatest possible benefit to the rest of the game when it has the greatest number of people possible using it. Delaying Forge by 3 months meant that it lost a lot of interest before people even got a chance to try it out. Many people just gave up on Halo 5 before Forge came along. Now, given that failure, surely they'd never make that mistake again. They'd never be stupid enough to delay Forge for 3 months. No, instead they delayed it for 9 months. I guess they did a cost-benefit analysis or something and felt it was worth cutting these features from the launch window. I don't think it is. I think launching a game without these features debases Halo. It makes the brand name less valuable. Halo set a high bar of quality, providing a lot of value for money given the amount of features you had available. To cut these compromises the brand of Halo in the eyes of fans and the general public. There's also, of course, the technical problems. Halo Infinite is losing players faster on PC than on Xbox. This isn't just because PC isn't the native platform for Halo. It isn't just because Halo doesn't have any underage anime girls. PC players are having problems with the game itself, the performance, for example. We're in an age where GPUs are prohibitively expensive. To make the game so unstable in open environments is not good. I have had quite a GPU journey this past year, from a 780 to a 6600 XT to a 1060 to a 3060 Ti, which I hope to stay on for a while. I'll tell you, The open world in Infinite doesn't run very well on a 1060, even on low, no high-res textures, and that's something within the minimum requirements. It's inconsistent. There are other open world games with better view distances which run better and are more stable. Someone at 343 must have had an unpleasant run-in with a horse at some point, because Halo Infinite does not even begin to approach stable. It crashes constantly on the 1060. I think I finally fixed it on my 3060 when I cap the frame rate and overclock and tweak the settings just right. The most popular PC games are often very well optimized, able to be run on any old piece of crap, especially in the free-to-play market. You do know that most free-to-play games are populated by Ivan on his 3DFX Voodoo desktop from 1997, right? The technical issues also extend to custom games and theater. Theater is just completely broken. It'll arbitrarily decide that certain matches just can't be replayed at all. Because of the lag compensation and whatever determinism model the game uses, they can't accurately recreate player movements in-game. Thus, it will regularly show players shooting through walls and almost never appearing in the same location they did in the actual game. In previous Halos, starting in Halo 3, theater mode was an almost perfect recreation of the game. The simulations occurred almost identically when replayed in theater as they did in the game itself. This was a technical problem already solved over 15 years ago. How have we regressed? The custom games also break regularly, won't launch, can be extremely laggy and are just difficult to set up. The game types are arbitrarily separated, like between team modes and free-for-all modes, where before it was just a checkbox. The game gives you fewer options, and it's missing vital modes like Infection and King of the Hill. Now that I say it out loud, it's really no surprise how hollow this game feels. It lacks things that have been established for years. This was the edge that Halo had as a game. What is even the point of launching a Halo game without the features that actually make it Halo? Remember the days when you'd get all these maps with all these features straight out the box? Are the, what? Better textures, more detail, unless we're talking about explosions, worth losing all these vital features? This is the worst deal of any Halo game yet. How did 343 not anticipate these issues? Did their market research tell them it'd go well? That it'd be fine to launch realistically a year before they should have? That's like swimming in shark-infested waters and being surprised that you get bitten. That's all because the actual chance of a shark attack is really low. I mean, the numbers say it's fine, so may as well, right? Look, you can try to compare it to other games' launch offerings, but this is Halo. We have precedent of better games. Halo is better than the average game. When you're making a Halo game, you should anticipate that the fans will have higher standards, because the previous Halo games were so good and provided so much value for the cost of a single game. The tale of 343 shows that money alone can't buy success. Funding isn't everything. Otherwise, Amazon's games would have taken off and Jeff Bezos wouldn't be bald. You need good management. You need people who care. Not like there's a shortage of people who care about Halo when there are millions of fans. I'm sure most people working at 343 are Halo fans, but they have not been managed well. Ultimately, I still stand by what I said in my reviews. Halo Infinite is still a good game, but basically every issue I was concerned about before launch has come to pass. I would be smug, but the fact is, I much prefer the feeling of playing custom games with a lobby full of people in a working, content-rich game than I do the feeling of wallowing in smug self-satisfaction on the internet. So it's become almost obligatory to say that I hope 343 can claw their way back at this point, but the more silent they are, the more we lose hope. And 343 are just well overdue with their homework. They still haven't done their roadmap yet. Thanks for watching. Again, I ask you to subscribe. Thank you and goodbye.